All right, everybody. Welcome back to another edition of the Teardown. My name is Jeff Gluck, and I'm along with my coworker, Jordan Bianchi. I don't know why you're making me laugh and smile already, Jordan. I think you feel like I have a rant coming or something. I don't. Why would I rant about this race? What is there to even say?
Well, I mean, between yesterday and the Xfinity Series race, which I'm not really sure, I kind of have an idea what you're going to say, but I don't 100%. And then today's race, I feel like we're in for some old school Jeff Gluck ranting and raving here. So I'm just going to sit back, put my feet up, and take in the show. So
Is that
floor is
what's
yours, sir.
okay?
Floor is yours.
All right. Well, listen. I mean, we're coming to you after the Watkins Glen race. Neither of us were there. Not that I was. Not that I'm disappointed to miss that one, to be honest with you. Yeah, I mean, look, last week at Indy, let's start with this because I need you to help me sort this out. Last week at Indy, there's one caution on a road course, and yet I was coming to you and saying, "Hey, I enjoyed that. It was compelling. Like it was good, and it got a decent number in the poll, right? Like people felt the same way that we did. Like we liked it." This today, road course race, one caution. Personally, I wasn't feeling the same way as last week. I was like, this is not a very good race. This is not a good race at all. So why? What is the difference between what we saw last week? Was it just the battle for the win that played out over the number of laps last week that it did? The underdog storyline, that kind of stuff. Like what was it about this race compared to last week that it was such a difference?
I think those are the two things. Well, one, Michael McDowell winning in kind of an upset, if you will, which I don't know if I want to use that word, but it was an unexpected win. And it was a feel-good story. And we don't see that a lot on road courses where a team comes in like that and kicks everyone's butt. That I think helped a lot. I think the winner was in doubt. I mean, you can say that, Michael McDowell led a lot of laps and he was in control of the race, but Chase Elliott was coming at the end. And until that last sequence of pit stops, Daniel Suarez was in the mix, and it felt like you didn't know, and you didn't know what was going to happen. There was an air of desperation there. This week, winner really wasn't in doubt. Like it felt like this was William Byron's race to lose, and if he didn't win, it was probably going to be Denny Hamlin's race to lose. Well, both those guys are firmly in the playoffs, and while I know William is racing for the playoff points and all of this stuff, the grand scheme of things, either one of those guys winning doesn't really do a whole lot, and there wasn't that aura of this could be interesting. Now, had we got a caution late, maybe we would have felt differently, but this just felt like a race that was very much we knew what was going to happen, and we did see a ton of passing. Yes, Michael McDowell came from the back, and Kyle Larson did as well to some degree. But it just the cars got strung out. There wasn't a lot of racing. It was hard to pass. It just felt different.
There was that moment. The caution comes out for Chase Elliott, and Byron and Hamlin line up on the front row together with Allmendinger's on the second row with Bell. And all of a sudden you're like, okay, now, okay, Allmendinger, desperate for a win, he's got to win the playoffs. And he's had a good weekend, like he looked good in practice. You're like, maybe this is it. And it was like, as soon as they got a couple laps, you're like, nope, it's done. Like there's no way he's passing. And nothing against I mean, you heard Allmendinger say after the race on USA Network, like I did everything I could today. Like I was proud of myself. This is with this car, talked about it, various instances. I mean, they're largely running the same speed.
That's the thing.
It is very tough to pass. The tires aren't falling off huge, so you're not creating a massive disparity through the field. Somebody gets out to some big lead and they burn their tires off and they fall back. Dirty air, Allmendinger mentioned. And this car is built for road course. It's a sports car. Jim France wanted the sports cars. Okay, you got one. Race is great, right? Like the drivers, hey, race is great. Or drives great. Doesn't race great, I guess I should say. So
not on road courses.
No, and not on short tracks. So this is sort of the trade-off, I guess. They made the big ovals a lot better, but they took two of the best types of racing from the previous generation or NASCAR history mostly, especially with the short tracks. And, it's just like, now I we can start to pick it apart right away because a lot of people are going to go say, well, if they just had the stage breaks, bring back the stage breaks.
That's not the issue. That is
I
not
agree.
the.
I
It
totally
is
agree.
to me. It's two different things. Like you want to make, you want to have that conversation. We can have that conversation. But to me, guys couldn't pass today. Like you're going to have stretches of green flag racing, even with stage breaks. And you got to have guys who are able to make moves over long runs and guys who are better over short runs. And I can't tell you how many times today over the radio I heard drivers were told or drivers said, we're running the same speed. Like I can't do anything. I'm getting everything I can out of this race car. Now, if you had a stage break, maybe you get some restarts and then you get craziness and cautions breed cautions and that whole thing. But we had a caution. We had that caution there with AJ Allmendinger in the mix, and we didn't have that craziness. And it just doesn't guarantee that. And I will say, I I said it last week and I'll say it again. Like I don't know if you can have this kind of racing on road courses every single time because I think it's going to get old quick. And I think we kind of saw it start to flip today a little bit. But I also want to see a quote unquote natural road course race without stage breaks where guys can make moves, where guys can pass, and where they're not running all of the same speed. And I think I was going back over last week's race, and to me, that jumped out to me was there was one caution happened on lap 2. They restarted on like lap 6, right? I forgot the exact number, but it was a ridiculous number of guys that finished on the lead lap last week, which tells you that despite this massive long stretch of green flag racing, they're running virtually the same speeds. And that's crazy to me. And I have to go look, and as you talk here, I'm going to go do it. But I'm curious to see today how many guys finished on the lead lap because we didn't have that many green flag races today. And that's indicative to me of the fact that these guys are all running the same speed and there's no separation.
31 cars on the lead lap.
That's a lot for a race that had one caution. That's
Yep.
crazy.
And I'm with you where I feel like, okay, you want to stop the race twice more. Sure, you could get a caution, an extra caution out of it. But when you get a lap or two into a run, like you said, there was a caution fairly late, right? With 30 to go or whatever. Mm-hmm. And it didn't change anything. So yeah, okay, you want to stop it a couple more times, you make the race a little longer. People are like, wow, it was, I think it was Dalton from Front Stretch. He had the stat, Dalton Hopkins, who said today was the shortest cup race time-wise in the modern era since 1972. 1 hour, 58 minutes, 44 seconds. Previous one was 2017 Watkins Glen, which was 2 hours, 7 minutes. So, okay, you add 2 more cautions in it, it won't be under 2 hours. But
by the way, that 2017 race, by the way, had stage breaks. So, it's just because you have stage breaks doesn't guarantee you,
I just don't think you can blame the racing on the stage breaks. That's all, what we saw. No. I will also say, I think that maybe part of the way we looked at today's race, again, I do think that mostly that we judge Indy differently because there was a compelling finish despite it running for so long, and you didn't know what was going to happen and down to the last lap. But even with today, I'm looking at it and I'm like, well, let's say Hamlin was closer. Let's say there's more of a battle. It just still didn't feel like anything was going to happen. I don't know. It just didn't.
They didn't feel any stakes, to be honest with you. Like it sounds bad, and I know Denny's fighting for the regular season championship, which is very important and can carry a lot of weight. But it just didn't feel like, oh, this is a moment. This is something we're going to be talking about all year. It never felt like that. And and again, to your point, like if Denny would have caught William, would he been able to pass him? I don't know if he would have, because there was times today where there was a faster car coming behind you, and then once they got in traffic or once they got bottled up, they couldn't do anything. So today was not the best showcase for NASCAR on a road course. It's unfortunate, but it just wasn't. And it's you wanted that drama, you wanted that unpredictability. It sets up for an interesting Daytona still, but not like we wanted. And this seems to be an ongoing discussion of what can you do with this car, and it's too good on road courses. The drivers aren't spinning out really. They aren't fighting on the edge of the line. We've said this year at like places like Kansas, Fontana, other mile and a half racetracks, you can see these guys just holding on, and like their skills are so apparent because they are the cars are so out of control, and it's great. That's what you want. Today, you didn't really get that. You didn't get one of those moments like, whoa, this guy's wrestling this car or anything like that. You didn't see that, and that's not good.
Yeah, and also I will say that had I think having back-to-back road courses as well is probably another factor where had we not just watched the Indy race last week and then you see almost a repeat type scenario this week.
Yeah,
Had they spread them out more. I mean, now there's 7 road courses in a year, right? So
6.
Oh, 6. Okay.
6.
You've got to put them together, I guess, at some points, or at least close together at some points of the season. This obviously is back to back. And when you see 2 races that are so similar with 1 caution each, I saw NASCAR Man on Twitter, or sorry, X, whatever. I'm never going to get used to
It'll
that.
always be Twitter.
He said June 1978 was the last time there were 2 consecutive NASCAR Cup races with only 1 caution. That was Riverside and Michigan. So, you can say, well, this is like 90s racing or whatever, but the 90s didn't have 2 races back to back with 1 caution, with only 1 caution. You know what I'm saying? Like, so, again, like you spread them out more. There's so many road courses now. I think if it was less these, or if there was still only 2 or 3 of these a year, maybe you'd say, oh, it's fine. Like we say about a Pocono race or a Michigan race or something, right? But when you see them, you're just like, I didn't. If I want to watch sports cars, I'd go watch a sports car race.
Yeah, I mean, and the beauty of why why there are so many road courses now on the schedule is the fact that the races were so good because it wasn't like sports car racing. It was more akin to V8 supercars, right? Guys are slamming into each other. We heard it, like short track, the road courses.
Tons of mistakes, wheel hopping,
wheel hopping, mistakes, slamming into each other, barrel rolling over somebody in a corner and move on the way. Like it felt great. Like it was cool. Now, and I get why there were more, but the problem with adding more is you also went to a car that's more sports car-y, and you took out all of those elements that kind of lend itself to great racing, where these stock cars weren't built for road courses. Guys had to figure out how to get them around there, which was an event, and there was wheel hopping and all of these other elements. And so it's going to be interesting. I guess the good thing, and to your point about the road courses, is you look at how things are laying out with the schedule next year. I don't anticipate there being back-to-back road course races in August next year. And that's good, because I think you're right. Like, you got to break it up. Less is more. Like, if you ran like a Bristol night race, back to back to back, like, people are going to be like, oh, like, you got to keep it, give it sparse. You got to pair it out a little bit. And that's the thing is and that's the beauty of the schedule now, is it is have so much variety. And I do think you have to make sure that you keep these kind of speedway races away from each other. You have to keep short tracks away from each other. It's just, that's the way this works, and it makes it for better, because when you go to one, it's like, oh, okay, I'm kind of ready for this because I haven't seen one in 5-6 weeks or whatever it is.
Yeah, I can agree with that. I don't know what you do though, car wise, because I think like you're seeing with the short track stuff, right? Like they're like trying, let's try this up down splitter. It didn't really work, or they don't think it worked. Let's maybe try a softer tire. Maybe it worked a little bit, maybe not. I think it's the car. I mean, it's just how the car is built, right? So you can say, well, we're going to take this part off, or we're going to add this, or we're going to do less downforce. Or I just think those are sort of small things. As long as you have this car, this is sort of what it's going to look like on road courses. And to that point, I think it was Jeff Burton on the NBC podcast with Nate Ryan last week, made a great point. And he said, I think it was him. He said, listen, I wish that why do we have to tell the teams, when, for Indianapolis, for example, right? Or Charlotte, for example, with the Roval. Why do we have to say before the season even starts, hey, this is going to be the road course of the Oval? Let's see how the racing's going that year. Because it's sort of in this case of chasing good racing, right? Like, hey, road courses are great. Let's add more road courses. Okay, so now they've added all these road courses. Now all of a sudden the car's not very good on road courses. So you say, well, I wish there was less road courses.
Yeah.
Why does God? I mean, gosh, now you see this today. The next road course is the Roval. I'm not excited for the Roval. I want to see the Oval.
Yeah,
right?
That's the thing is you compare this, and the Roval and Charlotte's a perfect example of that, because you go back to the 600 the last few years, and that's been terrific racing. And it's been phenomenal. And you're like, awesome, I want more of that. And then you get the Roval, and you're like, Oh, okay. Why are we here again? And I know why they did it, and at the time I support it, but
Right.
it's part of like what Kevin Harvick says is like, don't run it into the ground. Do these things for a couple years and then keep it moving, keep rotating it, keep things fresh. And I think yes, when you have the opportunity to kind of have an audible, if you will, at some of these racetracks. And Charlotte's the best example of whether you're going to be you're going to be on the roll or the road course. Maybe you wait, like wait as long as you can, and say, hey, wait a second, this for the good of the sport, for the good of our customers, and to maybe sell more tickets. Even we're going to put this on the oval this year, not the roval, and that's just the way it is. Now, that's not saying we're not going to go to it down the road, but for this year, this is how it's going to be.
Yeah, you could, I mean, to Jeff Burton's point, like you could say, hey, we are racing at this track or
Yeah.
this venue. And, then in the first couple months of the season, you see how it's going. You say, all right, you know what? It's going to be on the oval this year, or it's going to be on the roval, whatever. So,
Hell, have
um,
drivers vote for it, honestly, or have them like. I mean, I would. There's all sorts of cool ways to like figure this out. Like, you want to reward the guy who wins the All-Star race? Guess what? Or the regular season, you win the regular season championship or something like that. The defending champ gets to.
that's
I don't
too
know. Like,
self-serving because if somebody would go like, hey, I'm really good on road courses. So,
yeah, but I don't
you
even think
know,
that matters though. I mean, like we've seen so many guys that were supposed to be good on road courses, like whether it's an Austin Cindric, an Allmendinger last week. Like, it doesn't. It just there's no carryover necessarily. So I don't even know. I don't know. I just think you're right. I mean, like this is a cool, like, don't put yourself in a box. Like it'll never happen, by the way, but don't put yourself in a box. And when it comes to these things, like be open to it. And if anybody listening is from Charlotte Motor Speedway, like it's not too late to get off the oval for get off the roval for the oval in a few weeks, please.
so you mentioned about the people who are good on road courses, right? And one of those, I would have thought would be like Tyler Reddick, who had a
Yep.
top 10 day, but quiet.
Yeah.
You mentioned Austin Cindric, Allmendinger, hey, I was writing him off after last week completely. He ends up finishing fourth. It's not like he was in the mix for the win necessarily based on what we talked about, but hey, at least he was there. William Byron never won on a road course before today. Denny Hamlin is not necessarily known for his road course skills, although he's got the 3 poles this year. He's definitely improved, but he finished second. Christopher Bell is somebody who I would have thought would be good on a road course. But, yeah, to your point, a lot of them sort of got mixed up a little bit. It was just sort of it is weird in the sense that before I feel like you could tell, like, all right, we kind of identified this group going into a road course, and I think it's gotten harder. But you could probably say that about a lot of the tracks now. Like, it's just been a weird season. It just goes up and down so much, whether it's a Michigan type place or whatever. You're just like, no, Ford. And it's just when you think you kind of know at least the manufacturer or the team that might be good there, you're like, no, maybe not. But there was some people that I think had good chances today and took themselves out. I think number one would be Chase Elliott, and everybody's going to blame his crew. Everybody's going to blame his crew, right? Because, well, sure, but I mean, the team, Alan Gustafson had to get the information from somebody. It's not like he was like I'm sure the engineers told him, hey, we'll have 3 laps of fuel or whatever. So, look, I think it started when Chase had a bad qualifying. He didn't get the job done in qualifying. He said it himself. He ends up qualifying 15th. So what's the team doing? The team is trying to do a strategy where he's got to try to make up huge amounts of spots by short pitting the group in the first stage. They made up 6 spots or something doing that. And that's what they were trying to do again. They pitted early and it was running green. So they were trying to stretch their fuel so they could make it to their window. If Chase qualifies further up, they're not in this position to sort of try this sort of risky borderline strategy. Now that they obviously thought that they had enough fuel, they said they went over I was listening to the radio. They went over the plan multiple times. All right, look, you're going to run to the switch. He even said, you're going to run 10 more laps, hit the switch. You're going to pass me twice. You're going to pit. And, they got to the lap where they were supposed to pit this time, and he runs out of gas in turn 2. So they missed it by a lot. you know, it's unfortunate they're in this position, but it's a whole team effort. I don't just put it on one person. I really don't.
No, it's a team effort. You're 100%. It's a team effort. And what made Indy so good for them was they were fast in practice. They qualified well. They had their best qualifying effort of the season. And then it wasn't come the race time. It wasn't this helter skelter. We're bad and we've got to figure out how to get better. And then we're going to pull a rabbit out of our hat in stage 3 and come out with a decent finish, which has kind of been their template all year. It was like, no, we qualified well. We're running up front. We're putting ourselves in a position here. And they were. And I thought, and I think you did as well, that they were going to come here and like they're going to qualify well. They're going to, in a track position race where it's really hard to pass, starting near the front is going to be so important. And they didn't do it. And it starts with that. But and then come Sunday, I mean, you're the leader of the team, you're the crew chief, the buck stops with you, right? And I get that. And it's just been that kind of year where it's like things that you don't think are going to go wrong, mistakes that you don't anticipate from this team making. You don't anticipate Chase Elliott doing something and getting a suspension. You don't anticipate Alan Gusson, who is one of the best crew chiefs in the garage, to run his driver out of fuel in a race where it's critical not to do that. And track position is everything. It's just like they have just been off their game across the board, and it is coming home to roost. And that is the problem right now, is they put themselves in a points hole. Say what you want about whether Chase Elliott's a snowboard or not, but the fact is he missed 6 races with injury, missed another one with suspension. That's 7 races with 0 points. You can't have that kind of year and expect to make the playoffs if you're not going to win a race. And they have not won a race. And keep harping on this, but it's been since Nashville last June when they have won it, quote unquote, in a traditional NASCAR track, in a straightforward manner, if you will. And that's for this team and a driver in their prime with the top organization or one of the top 2 organizations. That's inexcusable. There is a lot of blame to go around across the board. You cannot be Chase Elliott. You cannot go 25 races into a season and not have a win. And this team can't be not winning stages and not leading laps, which is something they haven't done. They have just been so far out to lunch, and it's bad. And it's one of those things. And I know they've had these conversations. They're sitting down, they're reflecting, they're trying to figure out how they can get better. But it's like you almost have to look at this and say, what the hell is going on here? Do we have to do something more drastic?
I don't. It's mystifying to me. First of all, like if you go back to the Las Vegas episode where I threw my hat because you said he shouldn't get a waiver and all that stuff. But even then, the weekend of the injury, the snowboarding injury, we were already saying, well, of course he's going to win when he comes back. Yeah. It was never a doubt to me. I mean, I
didn't think you would either.
Absolutely positive he's going to win. This is a guy who won a series high 5 races last year. Mm-hmm. I just thought, of course he's going to win. He'll come back motivated. He's going to have plenty of chances. He'll heal up in whatever they said 6 weeks it was going to be, and that turned out to be just that.
Yep.
And it's just sort of what happened? He continues to defend Alan Gustafson in every opportunity he gets. I think Zach Sterniolo's article on NASCAR.com this week going into it. He's still, I do not think he wants to be broken up from Alan Gustafson in any way. Yeah. It seems like that's his guy. He's going to stick with him. They've just got to get better. I don't know how or why they're off. Maybe they just get a reset next year with a full season and just say, look, we just got to get a fresh slate here. But it's just weird to see him. I mean, this is a track where he had finished in the top 4 like over and over again. He had the best average finish of any driver in Watkins Glen history with more than 3 starts. I tell you what, we don't have a What an Idiot award on this podcast, but if I did have a What an Idiot award, I would give to Brett Griffin from Door Bumper Clear for listening to me. He says on his podcast, making fun of me for mentioning Chase Elliott's name so much last week. And then what does he do? He picks him for his DBC picks. He took my advice.
Yeah, when in doubt, never listen to Jeff.
Why would he listen to me? He went against his own instinct. He said, he's saying Chase Elliott's going to win and nobody else can win. And that's so ridiculous. I'm going to pick Chase Elliott. What an idiot. Why would you, Brett, what are you doing? So congrats on your 32nd place finish, Brett, for following my advice. But you're right though. Like it's just so weird to see this team not do what we're used to seeing them do over and over again. It's just like, why?
the two things here is, one, to me, today was kind of a microcosm of the year of kind of how Hendrick has gone. The 24 car and the 5 car are up front in position to win. The 5 had issues on pit road, and they had to go to the back, but they still were running in the top 5, right? And obviously 24 wins that race. And then the other 2 Hendrick cars, the 9 and the 48, are figuratively out to lunch and in scramble mode, trying to make hay. And it's just been this juxtaposition of these 2 guys over here, Byron and Larson, are doing what they're doing. They're winning races. And then these other 2 guys are just not. And that's been that way since late spring, when Hendrick is kind of fallen back a little bit. And it's been a struggle. And the one thing I keep coming back to about the Allen and Chase, and why the case is you should keep them together, and you kind of touched on it, and say, hey, listen, this was just a bad year. Like, everything that could go wrong went wrong. Chase got hurt. He got suspended. We've just made bad decisions. Like, it happened. I keep thinking back to Joey Logano and Todd Gordon in 2017. They were coming off a stretch in 14, 15, and 16 where they were dominant. They were winning a bunch of races. They'd made the championship 4 twice. They almost won the championship the year before. And in 2017, it felt like, okay, this team is here to stay. That year, they won 1 race, and it was encumbered at Richmond, and they weren't even able to use it for postseason eligibility. Logano finished 17th in the standings, didn't make the playoffs. And you're like, whoa, that was complete flop, right? Comes back the next year, though, they win the championship. And credit to Joey, credit to Todd, credit to Penske and the organization. They stayed the course, and they showed, hey, listen, we're not going to panic here. Things just happen. And I think that's your best case, your best example of why you don't make a change. Like, this is a team in the 9 team that has made the championship 4 for 2021 and 22. They've got a championship under their belts. They could have had another 1 or 2 easily along the way. This is a team that is, all appearances, they should be better than they are. They just had a really bad year.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I definitely don't think you break them up yet, in my opinion. I know a lot of Chase fans are out on Allen, but
they always have been, though, too. Like, it's being Chase Elliott's crew chief is one of the toughest jobs in the sport, because you're always under the microscope.
Yeah, I think it's they won a championship together, a few years ago. Like,
they deserve the benefit of the doubt. They deserve the opportunity to fix this problem.
If you have another year where you're getting completely outrun by the 24 and the 5 or something,
then you revisit this conversation.
So Michael McDowell looked like he was going to maybe have another, go back to back, and then just everything went wrong. I mean, you could say, well, he drove through too many pit stalls, then he had to, come back through, but he got back up. And then he had a crew member come over the wall that too soon. That was a penalty.
Got back up after that,
but he restarted like 8th or something, because, he was serving his penalty and the caution came out. So it didn't really penalize him that much. He was still going to be in the mix. And then, like, he has an engine problem to make the entire thing moot. I don't know exactly what happened. His car just shut off. But, it seemed like he was driving with a lot of confidence, but it can change that quickly, because he finished last. I mean, you go from the high of last week to finishing last. Now, I'll tell you why that's important. Last week, anyway. So he gained so few points today, ultimately, that he fell to 17th in the standings. Now, that doesn't matter in terms of what we're talking about, but we've been talking all season how all the winners have been in the top 16. Mm-hmm. Now you're going into Daytona next week. Ty Gibbs is actually 16th in points. Michael McDowell has fallen out of the top 16. Obviously, his win gets him in anyway, but he would be out of the playoff picture today had he finished even second at Indy, despite his good run. So you can look at this and be like, man, what a missed opportunity. They had a good car again, but you could also be like, woof, good thing we won at Indy,
It's nice to have that safety net to fall back on. It makes the hard days easier to swallow. But I do think this is a missed opportunity, because, how often does front row bring a car to the racetrack, and no disrespect to them, but they bring a racetrack and they're one of the 2 or 3 fastest race cars, and everybody's looking at them saying, that's who we got to beat today. Happened in Indianapolis, and they did it. They were in position to do it today. Now, who knows how things would have played out, but they certainly looked in line for a top 5 finish. And when you have those opportunities, you need to capitalize on it. And when they slip away, when you're a mid-sized team, you don't know if you're going to get that opportunity or when that next one is going to be down the road. This isn't like you drive for a Gibbs or a Hendrick and say, you know what, next week or 2 weeks, we're going to be fine. And so I do think that's a little bit missed opportunity. And then all that comes with it too, right? I mean, if you do win today, you get more bonus points. You finish higher up in the regular season standings and everything that goes along with it. And you're probably going to have to rely on some of those bonus points come the playoffs, and especially that first round, which is going to be a dogfight to get out of. And if he can get to the second round, that's great. Talladega's in that round, and Roval's in that round, and that's good for him. But getting out of round one is going to be the struggle, and that's the goal for this organization. Jerry Freese, their general manager, has said it. We have been in the playoffs before, and we've never been out of round one. Our goal this year is to get out of round one, and losing out on opportunities like you have today is going to put you behind the eight ball a little bit in getting out of round one.
Let's talk about one more driver before we move on to Daytona talk and looking ahead to how the playoff field will be set. Daniel Suarez, he's been right in the picture here. The bad pit stop at Indy really cost him. But then he still comes into Watkins Glen. He's like, I can make up some points on Bubba Wallace. Like this is something I can do. Bubba ended up getting stage points in both stages today. I think finished 12th. The caution timing hurt him, but it didn't even matter for the Suarez part of it because Suarez took himself out lap 5 or something really early. I think lap 5 he spun by himself. Like, gosh, talk about if you're making a list of things you just can't do when you're trying to, be in the playoff picture like that. He never recovered from that, finished 22nd. Just I don't know what to say that you hate to see it kind of thing. Like, it's just like dang, that's a way to take yourself out,
You can't do it. And it's the problem with this team, whether it's the driver this week, whether it's the pit crew last week. And this has been the pattern all year long, where good runs, something happens, and they cost themselves better finishes than they deserve. And this is what happens. And this is why, if you can't win races, you're now out of the playoffs. Now, if you have all these mistakes, that's great. And you can still win a race, you're going to be okay. But when you can't win races and correct this, it's a problem, and that's where they're at right now. But this has been a long issue for Suarez and this 99 team, where they are their own worst enemies, where they have had good race cars and then something happens to take them out, and it's something different every week, it feels like, and you can't do it. If you have speed in your race car, you can overcome a lot of mistakes, but they don't necessarily have a lot of speed in their race cars at times. They're good on road courses, and coming off a great run in Indianapolis and Suarez being very good on the road courses, you look at Watkins Glen saying, hey, not only do we have a chance to get a lot of points and maybe make our lives easier come Daytona, maybe we qualify well, we run well, we can put ourselves in a position to get a win. And instead, you take yourself on lap 5, and then from there, it's an uphill struggle. And you leave here, and now you're in a must-win situation at Daytona. That's not a situation you want to be in. But again, they have no one to blame but themselves.
Yep. Geez, what a you just can't it's stuff you just can't have happen. It's just,
but it keeps happening. That's the problem. It's just,
frustrating, I'm sure, for them. Well, speaking of Daytona, we now know how the playoff picture is set. I feel like we need to spice this up by bringing somebody else in who knows a lot about Daytona and what's going to happen next week. Don't you think? Like,
he is. He's we're a membership of the same club, by the way.
Well, who were you even talking about? I didn't even say who I was talking about yet.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm sorry. Never mind then.
What club are you in with our next guest?
The Fancy Sports Code Club.
Oh, okay. Well, we're talking about Frank Kelleher, president of Daytona International Speedway. I think we should have somebody that knows what they're talking about to come on and talk Daytona with us. So let's go.
Let's good.
All right. As advertised, we said we needed an expert, Frank. So now Jordan was building you up though, as like he said, oh, he's the member of the same club I am. And I'm like, what club's that? He's like, oh, the Sports Coat Club.
Yeah, we're like the Fancy Sports Coat Club. You come onto the podcast, you're one of the very few guests we have on the show, and you're not wearing a sports coat, you're wearing just a t-shirt.
What, you're not wearing one either, Jordan?
But no, but this is like he's supposed to wear a sports coat. That's his thing.
I will come correct on race day. But you know what though? It's going to be a little toasty next week. I won't be able to pull off a t-shirt, but you're right. I try to step it up on race day with some nice digs, but it's a Sunday. I've been here all day helping the team get ready for next weekend. And I thought my Garage 56 tee would be appropriate.
Yeah. For those of you who are listening and not watching, Frank is in Victory Lane at Daytona, where somebody's going to be next Saturday night. Gosh, I hope next Saturday night and not some sort of rain out. But now, Frank, we kind of know the situation a little bit more, right? Like going into this race, we're like, oh, there could be a situation where Harvick and Keselowski are going to that spot. So I've been wondering from your position, like, what do you hope for? Like, what do you root for when you're watching the Glen today? Are you like, oh, give me this storyline? Like, how do you view it as a track president?
It's a great question. I think first and foremost, authentically, like just as a race fan, like I try to put myself in the shoes or like the mindset of if I bought a ticket and I'm coming next weekend, like what am I looking for? And whether or not like my favorite driver, if he's locked in, you definitely want those storylines to where like I think it's great that Harvick and Keselowski are locked in. I mean, unless I'm mistaken, this is going to be Harvick's last time racing in the Cup Series at Daytona. So like stoked for him that he can just come here and let it all hang out and get after it and go for another Daytona win, which I think is a great storyline. And then like Chase Elliott, most popular driver. And I think, right, his interview prior to this, I forget who posted it. He's like, the pressure of coming to Daytona and having to win is like going to Vegas and like, right, your last dollar going in the slot machine and, pulling it down to have to win is just, it's a lot of pressure and a lot of stress. And it's like, I'm just thrilled for the fans that have tickets that are going to be here and for the folks that can't, like tuning in, just all of these storylines unfolding, some great content or just, data out there on Twitter of like, what are the points like to date, but let's not lose sight. Like someone way on the outside can show up here and get the job done and win and punch their ticket. We saw that last year with Austin Dillon, the year before Blaney, like not having a great year then, and they win and they jump in the playoffs. So I guess I'm kind of easing into like a promoter, like killer storylines. I mean, the weather's looking awesome. We've got the drama to where people need to show up and get the job done. So I'm thrilled. The place looks ready. And here I am in Victory Lane. And next Saturday night, we're going to see who's parking their car behind me and getting ready to hit the playoffs.
Obviously, Chase Elliott being in the playoffs is probably best for NASCAR. He's NASCAR's most popular driver, but he comes into your race very much on the outside where he needs to win. And so it is when you see that, I mean, is a part of you like, okay, this is good because now we've got a hook. We can sell that of, hey, NASCAR's most popular driver is coming to my racetrack in a wild, unpredictable race, and he's going to have to put it all out there. Is that when you saw today's race unfold and you saw what happened with him, are you like, okay, I kind of like this. This is good for me. This is good for business.
No doubt. It's great for business. We're excited about it. I get asked a lot living in the community, or sometimes I get asked like, hey, are you happy with where the race is at? Or sometimes people will just lead like, man, you got to be bummed that it's not 4th of July. So this will be my 21st summer race working for the France family, being with NASCAR. And like authentically, when you look at the numbers, like we are on our way to having one of the largest summer races ever from an attendance standpoint. So to me, like it just proves that the regular season starting in Daytona and ending in Daytona, and this being the last race of the regular season, it's gotten sticky. Like from a fan perspective, like you want to tune in because any one of these guys can show up and win this race. So to me, it's like the cherry on top that you have the storyline of Chase. But even prior to this, like we are on the path to just having a huge event from our campgrounds. They're going to be packed to, as I kind of hinted towards, we're ready to break some records this week from an attendance standpoint for our summer race. So just now that Chase needs to race his way in, it's just, one more push that, people in the community to come buy a ticket and come check out a great race.
I mean, Frank, like when they moved it off July 4th, I was definitely one of the people that was like, the tradition there, like, I don't know, that's really tough. And then I think as soon as I saw the first time that it was in that slot of being the last one for the regular season, it was like, oh, okay, yeah, now this.
Yeah.
He does that a lot, by the way. He like has a very hard take on something and then realizes, oh, you know what? Wait a second here.
It's either that
Yeah.
or like I have to wait years and then it eventually comes around. But in this case, I definitely don't want this to move because this is perfect. Like, I think it's perfect the way it is.
Yeah.
Look, if you haven't won in the regular season by now, like, I don't really have a lot of sympathy because you had 25 races to do it. And, you know, yeah, it's going to be very hard. Like, I know the feeling of being down to your last dollar in Vegas.
Yeah.
And it's, you know, Jordan doesn't gamble, but you're just like, oh no, this is terrible. Like, but somebody's going to hit the jackpot. So, you know, and I love the fact too that it is set up multiple years now. And this is the perfect example of it, where you have the storyline of, okay, some like a Justin Haley or an Eric Almirola or whoever can win their way in, but you still have the subplot of the points battle. Like, well, if they don't, Bubba's got this battle with Ty Gibbs now. And like, you know,
Yeah.
I think that's very fascinating to see, to be able to watch both during the event is really cool to me.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, Hendrick cars, they're so strong here, right? I mean, how many years have they just sat on the front row for the Daytona 500? Bowman was leading points before he got sidelined. So, I mean, between him and the 9 and the 5, I think they're going to come out swinging. I mean, Almirola was, you know, parked it in here, you know, back in February during the duel. I mean, he's won the summer race as well. That, yeah, I mean, there are just, you know, you nailed it, of the reality now, Daytona being the regular season finale, of what it means for the sport as a whole. And just think too, like, for new fans or folks that are just, you know, kind of getting interested in the sport of, wait a minute, so your biggest race is the first race? I don't understand. To where now this just really helps with, well, we start and we end at Daytona, and, you know, you need to tune in. So I think it's going to be a real fun week.
You know, obviously the schedule in present day NASCAR is very fluid and things are changing, but there are certain constants, right? I mean, Daytona 500 is going to be the first race of the year, Coke 600, Southern 500. I asked this because it feels like Daytona regular season is cemented itself as the regular season finale. Like, moving off of it doesn't make sense for all the reasons that both you and Jeff cited. In your estimation, is this something that I don't want to say permanent, because nothing is ever permanent, especially in NASCAR, but does this feel like something like long-term, like for years and years, this is going to be where it's at? Because moving it just doesn't make any sense.
You know, I don't think it makes sense right now, but I mean, just think of everyone's reaction, not everyone's reaction, some reaction when the sport first went to LA.
Sure.
And, you know, the reaction, the pros and cons that people were talking about Chicago, and then the end result of that, to where I don't think anything is guaranteed and a lock. And like, I take the mindset of, I feel it's my responsibility to make sure that we earn it, right? Like, to make sure that Daytona continues to earn this spot in the summer schedule, you know, by having great partners like Coca-Cola on the race, by having all of our track facing suites sold out, by making sure that the infield is sold out and that our campers are having a great time and that we're filling the place up. So I guess I just try to boil it down to, like, control the controllables of what I can control. But, you know, when folks are around a boardroom and we're trying to map out the strategy, maybe for the next 10 years, 5 years, whatever it could be, like, I don't know where they would move it or why they would move it, but I mean, things could happen. So again, we're going to show up and make sure that our fans are having an awesome time, and hopefully we can keep this locked in.
So what I'm hearing is championship race then at Daytona.
Don't do
in the
that.
future.
Don't do
I
that.
don't know. I don't know. I don't know if we could do that, but who knows?
All right, I got a question for both you guys, because I was just sitting here thinking as we were talking about, you know, who's trying to get in and stuff. It's you know, like, if it was just Chase who wasn't in, you could see, like, okay, all the Hendrick guys would try to team up, you know, maybe, you know, if they had they're not going to give up their chance to win and get 5 playoff points for themselves, but they could probably push him in, you know what I mean? But the fact they have 2 cars, it's a little bit different. And then on the other side of it, with the point situation, you have 2 Toyotas, right? Like, the guys who could race their way on points, it's Ty Gibbs versus Bubba Wallace. So Toyota, you know, they might have a little bit, it's not very clear cut to, like, just team up with somebody and try to push somebody in.
Mm-hmm.
How do you think the teams are going to play that. I don't care. Whoever wants to take it first. I really have no idea.
Frank, you're the guest. You go first.
Well, I mean, was it Mike Tyson who said everyone has a plan until they get punched in the face? Like,
Yes.
I mean, this is Daytona. Like, you can have all the prep sessions that you want throughout the week of, hey, here's scenario A, B, and C. And I think when the green flag drops and people start pushing and there's the draft and, stage breaks and all of that, like it's just going to break loose and get wild to where, Jeff, you bring up a really, really heavy question there. Like, I mean, it would be pretty awesome to be a fly on the wall and what is Toyota's strategy trying to get into this week, right? And then you got to be thinking too of like stage point wins and how all the, what transfers into the playoffs and what doesn't. So, yeah, I think everyone will have a smart plan, and then once the green drops, we'll see what happens.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like it's always the thing, right? This is always the question going into these races because you always have people with varying strategies. It always comes down to let's let it play out. What going into stage one is going to look a lot different than what it's going to look like in stage three after guys have incidents on pit road. Our big one takes effect and knocks some guys out. And then once that happens, let's assess. At the end of the day, I think it's every man for themselves until the end.
Yep.
And then at the end, you kind of look at the situation and assess. But going in, you want to be a good teammate, but as you know, who knows?
Yep.
Yeah, and I'll tell you guys something else that's going to be a wrinkle that I think this is the kind of thing that a lot of fans are going to be like, well, I don't really care about this, but the teams do. It's like Dustin Albino from J-Ski pointed out. So 6th through 12th in the standings are only separated by 14 points. And obviously, if you finish in the top 10 or whatever it is, you get playoff points based on your, so we already know, I mean, Martin Truex Jr., he's up by 39 on Denny Hamlin. He's probably going to win the regular season championship unless something goes wrong. Byron's locked in the 3rd spot, but those guys, even if it's like 1 playoff point, 2 playoff points, they're going to completely strategize their entire race around like,
yes.
I mean, and that's going to be, again, fans are going to be like, well, I don't really care if Brad Keselowski gets 1 playoff point or something, but they do. I mean, for sure, right?
I'll take it even a step further, though. Like, if you look at it right now at the owner standings, the 9 team is in the playoffs right now. The 23 team is not.
By 30 points, yeah.
Yeah. If you ask Denny Hamlin what he cares about, yeah, you would like Bubba Wallace win the championship and everything, but the team owners get paid based off the owner standings, and they get all the bonuses that way. So there's something to watch there where Bubba has to race to get his team in the playoffs. So it's another wrinkle that you have going into a race that already has a lot of wrinkles.
Yeah, I mean, Frank,
you're welcome to use any of this in selling this, Frank.
I love it. We're recording, right?
I don't know how you, yeah. I don't know how you do it with like all the where you put all these wreck cars and safety stuff and I don't know if the track's big enough to have enough tow trucks for the chaos that might break out when these guys are like, no, we're going for it at the end here. We have nothing to lose because. Again, if you're not worried about points, like you mentioned Harvick earlier in the show, and he can just he has literally nothing to gain. I mean, I guess
yes.
That's a dangerous thing for some drivers,
Yeah, no doubt. To me, that's what fires me up as a fan as well. That there always just is that Daytona element. Everybody wants that W on their resume that they won at Daytona. So there's just going to come a moment of whether there's team orders or manufacturer, wishes of, wait a minute, I got a chance to win this race. I got to go for it. Right. And in their right mind, if they pull it off, like who's going to give them a hard time in victory lane? Like, you should have settled for 6. Like, that's just not going to happen here.
So I got to ask you then. So obviously last year we know what happened in this race. We had the big pile up in turn 1, turn 2. Where were you when that happened? Were you watching it? Were you walking around? Did you see it happen live? Were you talking to somebody? What was it like for you when you saw that happen?
I believe I was somewhere on pit road. Okay. And when the wreck happened, so I didn't have the luxury of like watching every lap and every moment. So sure. I learned more about what went down after the event and kind of, on Twitter, and then, just learned kind of what happened. And yeah, I mean, it was unfortunate for the folks that got caught up, in that wreck. And it's such a touchy situation, and I have so much empathy for the competition team having to make that call. Like, I've been living in Florida since 2003. Like, you can have a gorgeous, gorgeous radar, and not from the Gulf, not from the Atlantic, a storm just appears and it just pops up. And this place is massive. I mean, 2.5 mile oval around that. Something could be going on in one corner, not in another corner. So, yeah, I think everyone made the best call and the best decision, and things happen in the moment. And fingers crossed, we don't have to deal with that next weekend. But we'll
Dude, no
see.
kidding. I do have a question though. So like, and I've never been in this situation, right? From a track president standpoint, let's say you're like the rain delay that was last year, right? And everybody's trying to like, oh, we got to wait out the rain. Can we get this restarted? Sometimes you guys are having to deal with postponements, stuff like that. What do you do during those times if there is a delay? Like, do you just sit there at some computer being sad and look at the radar? Or are you in meetings the whole time? Or like, do you check in every hour with people? Like, how does that go from a track president standpoint?
It really is a mixed bag of all of the different responsibilities that flow your way. Sometimes you'll get a heads up of, hey, get to a quiet place, we're going to need to jump on a call and make a decision, and you're looking at it through the lens of so many different angles. Like, first and foremost, like, we've got lights. Like, we could race all night, and like, so from a property standpoint, like, we're ready to go. You scenario plan all of that, of anything that could happen, to have a plan B and C. So from a property standpoint, we're ready to go. Then we got to think about our fans, and their safety is number one. So if we're dealing with rain and we're dealing with lightning, we want to make sure that everyone is safe. We then need to think about the city and the county and traffic. If you're going to shut a race down, you need to make sure that the state police, city police, everyone is ready for these stands to empty and people to head to their cars and get out, and that they can get on the highway and get home safely. So your mind goes there. Your mind is also thinking about your network partner of, like I said, selfishly, like, we'll race anytime, we're ready to go, but you got to think about everyone involved with NBC or with Fox and Q1, camera workers, all of that. Your mind goes to all of your temporary employees from guest services, people that need to take care of the fans, the people work in the concession stands. Like, all right, how much food do we have? How much time do we push towards, like, all right, maybe we pause till midnight, but man, if we don't get the race in and we need to run tomorrow, who's going to show back up? So there are like so many different things. And I didn't even get into, like, our partner Coca-Cola and what's their point of view for next weekend? Are their executives still here? So there are so many things that you don't control, that you just, like, at that moment in time, you need to try to think about everyone and just, okay, what is the best decision for all involved? And then it's like, you're not going to make everyone happy. So, that where we try to put our fans first and foremost, and then from there, everything kind of trickles down. So, I remember last year, I think I was in the media center and got a call from O'Donnell and from Chip. And then I went to the venue side, went up into, where the competition team is calling the race. And we made a decision as a team, and we were back here the next day. Well, I never left. I stayed in the infield. We were ready to go at 6 a.m. and I think we dropped the green flag just after 10 a.m. So again, let's not talk about that. Let's talk about, it's gonna be.
Are you staying in an RV again in the infield? Are you doing that again?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. So I'm this will be 2.5 years that I'm in this role, and the Rolex Speed Weeks, I'm here. Rockville for our 4-day music festival, I go home each night for that, and then our August event, I will be here, and then our other major events, I typically go home. And now that I say that, Supercross, I stay here as well, just because it's such a quick turn from Saturday night. We also have one of the country's largest amateur Supercross races that take place the days after Daytona Supercross. So I stay here.
How do you like RV life?
I enjoy it, man. It's fun. It just, I'm married. I have 2 little kids. And so
you get
part
to
of
escape.
me, it's like,
that's perfect.
Well, It's like part of me, like I want to be home, but
I
it's
know.
also like, for me, I treat it as a road game that I am away and I'm here to work and I'm here to be present for the job. Um, but my son is 9, my daughter's 7. They just started, school back. So now it's fun because they'll come and hang out with me like on Friday night. Like they'll be here for the Wawa 250 and they look at it as like camping with dad. So it's like all the chips, all the ice cream, all the cookies, and they get to enjoy the race and stay with me, and then they'll be in the stands watching on Saturday. So it's fun.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
Well, man,
sounds great.
thank you so much for hopping on here. You've delivered the expert insight that we needed to get through this. So thank you so much for doing this. And we're excited to see you on Saturday night and get the race in Saturday night and cure the summer of rain. Hopefully we've
Yes.
seen the last rain of the season at this point. I think for everybody in NASCAR, we've all had enough.
Well, I'm grateful for you guys having me on. I look forward to seeing you here in the media center. I hear Watkins Glen, the media center, is known for its ice cream machine. So I don't have one in the media center, but I might have some surprises for you guys next week when you're here. And post event, if you want me to jump back on or do something, whenever, just I
Are we getting a
appreciate you guys
cappuccino
covering
machine?
the sport.
Are we finally
Oh,
getting
man,
a cappuccino machine?
Sport coats and cappuccino, man.
This guy.
This is what I want.
High end.
Don't get greedy,
I put
Jordan.
request
Come
in
on.
for a cappuccino machine. I'm just saying.
I'll see what I can do.
All right. Well, thanks again, man. We appreciate it.
All right, guys, have a great night. I'll see you soon.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Have a good one. See ya. All right, Jordan. We're back. It was nice for Frank Kelleher from Daytona to hop on there. And we just have a few things to wrap up on the other side of this interview here. So I know you told me when I was getting a little bit heated after Saturday's Xfinity race that I should save my takes for the podcast. Talking about, of course, Sam Mayer and Ty Gibbs. Ty Gibbs dominates the Xfinity race. There's a late restart, and Sam Mayer, depends on your view, cleans him out, goes on to win the race. What was your thought on that?
No. Nobody cares what I have to say. Nobody wants to hear me talk about this. They are here because of you and what you have to say about this. The floor is yours, sir. I'm just going to sit back and eat my popcorn.
Look, everybody's like on the extra plies. People are like, oh, so you was okay when Ty Gibbs did it to Brandon Jones last year? That was okay? And now this isn't? Get out of here. Who said that was okay? Nobody. Everybody condemned Ty Gibbs. His own father came in the media center after Martinsville and was like trying to explain, oh, yeah, we're going to have a talk and all this stuff. It was very awkward and all sorts. Like Ty Gibbs had to apologize. Everybody, sponsors Toyota, everybody was pissed about that. Nobody was like, oh, that's okay. That's just racing, Ty Gibbs. No problem. I certainly didn't say that on this podcast. We didn't say that. What are you talking about? Okay. Everybody recognizes that Ty Gibbs has made mistakes and done things that he should not have done on the racetrack and been over aggressive. However, that does not make it right for somebody to just go clean somebody out, especially when they haven't done that to them. Sam Mayer is all fired up because Ty Gibbs had a great restart and raced him hard in the S's. And he ended up hitting the wall, brushing the wall as part of that battle, which to me was like, I went back and watched the replay. How is that like any sort of like dirty move? Like they were hard racing. He kind of ran him out of racetrack a little bit. Obviously, they have a rivalry going back years and years. We all get that. They don't like each other. But like, to me, that led into Sam Mayer going, wow, this is like, he acted like he had some egregious thing happen to him. He didn't even lose a position. I don't think he damaged his car. He ended up winning with that car. So then, he's all fired up on the radio. Even Kevin Hamlin, his spotter, is trying to calm him down, being like, well, if I was spotting for the leader, or, I would told him to do the same thing. They're like, it's just, and Sam, you could tell he's all fired up. So you've got this restart coming up, right? And he's going to have 2 entire laps around a road course to do whatever with Ty Gibbs, to pass him, to make the pass cleanly, to race him, to, to me, like the best form of revenge is like to just blow by him. You think you want to really send a message, blow by him. Instead, he just drives down in turn 1 and cleans him out. Oh, it wheel hopped. Oh, why do you think it wheel hopped? He he didn't wheel hop in the other times he was going down in there. He drove it in too hard. He wheel hopped and he took him out. He knew what he was doing. Of course, he can't say that because then it'll be some blatant thing. But to me, like, I think the whole thing is not a good look for NASCAR. NASCAR should not be in a situation where drivers can just go in and just completely wipe out the leader. Oh yeah, and then you just go ahead and win the race. Oh yeah, celebrate penalty. Like what's going on here? How is there not some sort of like I don't want NASCAR to have to officiate every single contact on the track or every single incident. I'm not saying that. Like if you spin somebody out, you got to go to the back or whatever, like for 19th. I'm not saying that. But for the lead in a situation like that, you take out the leader, you're not winning. You can't win. I'm sorry, you can't. And I would have said the same thing for Ty Gibbs at Martinsville with Brandon Jones last year. That cannot be allowed to happen. It just can't. I'm sorry. Like that is people are like getting mad at me the other day for the ARCA race. Jesse Love goes into the final corner and executes like the perfect bump and run. And he didn't wreck the guy in front of him, right? Like he did it just enough to get some room there, drives underneath him, wins. Both drivers gave great interviews. Bob, pit road reporter Bob, got a great interview out of Connor Zilich. You're just like, oh, okay. Like, hey, that was, to me, that's stock car racing. Like you can use the bumper, but to just like take somebody out, nah, sorry. Like, especially when you had 2 whole laps to do it. It wasn't even the last lap. He could have done that anywhere on the track. Could have done it S's. I mean, so to me, that's sending a message of like, well, I know if I can't pass him right here and I don't get it done right here, he's going to drive away from me and I'm not going to be able to do my revenge. So look, I got nothing against Sam Mayer. I think he's a good driver. He's winning and I think he's improved. He's won 2 races now, but I just, man, here's the other thing too. If it was an accident, you don't celebrate to that degree. You just don't, because you would, if somebody really felt like, oh shoot, I didn't mean to do that. This is, they would have got out and said, oh, I hate to win like that. They wouldn't, they might not have done a burnout. You've seen that before, but it was a big time celebration. It was like, yeah. And then at the end in the interview where he's like, well, I think everybody could agree with me. It's great that an Xfinity series driver won this instead of a Cup guy or whatever. You're like, I mean, sure. I just want to see, like, at least race it out or try to race it out. If you're still mad, okay, move them out of the way, something you felt you got wrong, but just to go in there and just wreck somebody in turn 1, which is like just to stay on the gas. Essentially, I just, no, don't like that. That's my take. That's all.
8 out of 10, I think, on the rant scale. That's pretty good. A little more passion maybe next time, a little bit more fired up. I don't, you were there, but you just didn't quite get it over the edge. It was good stuff, though. It was good.
Well, again, like I recognize there's a history.
We have part 2.
Well, no, I'm saying there's a history. So like, they fought on pit road before. I mean, even go back to like the ARCA type days, like, these guys do not like each other. We get it. And so I'm sure that's, if it's somebody you don't like over and over again, you're going to view it differently. But everybody, to me, on Twitter, like I got ratioed, I think, but it's because everybody's completely blinded by their hatred of Ty Gibbs. People cannot stand Ty Gibbs. And so anything that happens bad to him, they're like, awesome. Yeah. Sam's my new hero. Way to go. Yeah. But as somebody who doesn't care either way about either of them, then some people are like, I found the big Ty Gibbs fan. Oh yeah. Like you found me out, guys. I just shredded this dude last October for the Brandon Jones thing. If anything, I'm being consistent. I'm mad at both those moves. I don't like either of them. Anyway, that's all. I should stop.
Oh, this is up to a 9 now. You came out of that stage break we just had there, and you came and hammered it, and that puts it over the edge. You get a 9 out of 10. This isn't Bristol Dirt Rant, but this is in the same realm. Well done, sir.
I'm not trying to rant.
Well done.
I'm not trying to rant. I'm just expressing You told me to save it for the podcast, so I saved it for the podcast. That's all I
It
have to
was
say.
worth it.
Some people, after I said save it for the podcast, they said, well, now I'm not going to listen to the podcast. So
That's okay. I think more people are going to listen to the podcast because of
no,
this.
I don't think so. I think we lost listeners this week because of
I
that.
think
But
we're going to be just. I think we're going to be just fine.
well, nobody's going to. Not that many people are going to listen to this
Listen,
podcast
I
anyway.
have said this
Because
before, and other people will agree with me. We need a weekly Jeff rants segment.
do you know what rants do for me? Nothing.
What
All it
do
does
they
is
do?
get people mad at me.
Oh no!
Yeah, all it does is get people mad at me. So I don't like to rant anymore.
If you're
What's
going to
the
have
point?
if you're going to have opinions and big opinions, people are going to be mad at you.
Well, it's not fun.
I get it. Trust me. I understand people being mad at you, but it also goes with the territory, right? Like when you have opinions or you do things that people don't like, that you've got to just got to be able to shrug it off and go forward. I get it. It sucks, but being told, called names or anything, but then don't have opinions. But that's not what we do.
Well, soon, according to Elon Musk, we won't even be able to block people on Twitter. So
I saw
we'll
that.
hear
I thought of you when I saw that.
everybody. You thought of me? What
Yeah.
about our guy Brett, who blocks everybody?
Oh, there's a few. There's a lot of people out there that I know that are avid blockers that are gonna all of a sudden be like, whoa, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, these people are moving back.
All
in
we'll
my
lead to
neighborhood
is
now.
pretty much not. Nobody will ever say anything on Twitter anymore. But anyway,
Save it for the podcast, baby.
save it for the podcast. All right, time for the Was It a Good Race poll. Of course, most of you probably have followed that. I won yet again last week. It's now a 12-12 tie. However, with these two races to go, as I've said, Big Joe Wall, who keeps track of this for us, has once again updated the stats, and you still have a huge advantage in the tiebreaker. You haven't been losing by very much at all.
No, I've been making good guesses.
It's been really close. All these, it's been really close. So the tiebreaker, you have a 20, 30 something point lead or something, 25 points, something like that. It's not even close. So unless you really blow the tiebreaker these next 2 weeks, I still have to win out. I still have to keep this streak going, because if I win today and then you win next week and it's a tie to end the regular season, you're going to have the tiebreaker. That said, Jordan, this is a really tough one. This is one of the tougher ones. I say that every week, but this is a really tough one because you're coming off a race where, again, we just had a relatively, Indy Road Course got 72.6 for a one caution race. And I'm going to go about half that. I think I'm going to go like 37%.
Oh,
so this is what I'm saying. This could be a big discrepancy here. Yeah, I know.
Whoa.
I know. You think I'm screwing myself?
I think that's super low. I did a little, a little bit of research.
I did too. I came prepared. You always tell me not to come prepared. Well, I looked. What was your research?
And I look and people I think generally speaking is probably say that they weren't a fan of this race, but I don't think it's to that degree. That's a big number.
I think it was pretty bad.
I'm not saying it. I'm not trying to.
I'm saying the sentiment was pretty bad. I think people are out on this race.
Yeah. All right. Yeah. I'm gonna go 40. What did you say? 30 what?
37.
37. I'm gonna go 40.
Oh, you went way lower than you were planning on going.
100%.
Dude, you were totally going to go in the 50s or something, weren't you?
That was 60 was in my head, but that's
60?
a little high. 60 felt a little high.
Oh, and then you go 40 just because of me?
I'm hedging, baby.
Oh man, you are really playing the game now. You used to hate when I prices right.
No, I don't like. I did not prices right you. I did not undercut you.
You just changed your guess by 20 points.
Yeah, I'm just blocking in there. That's all.
You just changed your guess by 20 points just because of something I said.
That's the joy of going second, is I can hear what you pick and then I can adjust accordingly.
So this is going to be, I would think either way, no matter what, even if with your original guess, the previous low Watkins Glen race in the poll was 68%. I mean, there really never been like a really like bad Watkins Glen race. Watkins Glen's usually pretty good.
Yeah.
Also, one reason I'm basing it off and saying 37 is like the Sonoma race this year, which was dominated by Truex and was just really not very good race. Nothing really happened too much there. I mean, but more happened in that race than this race. That got 43%.
So 40 is a good number. Okay.
So I feel like if you're going to say this race
Yeah.
or Sonoma, this race was worse than Sonoma, right?
I don't know. I mean, Sonoma was pretty bad. I mean, this they at least had some storylines that were interesting to follow. The Chase Elliott stuff, for example, Michael McDowell. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I think they both were bad. I mean, they were both bad.
I'm just saying that's why I felt like,
get it.
okay, well, that was,
No, that's your threshold. I get it. That's your barometer, what you're going to go off of. I get it. That makes sense.
that said, I am a little bit worried about 37 because now that I look at it, the worst race of the season so far is 37.
Oh, it's not the
Martinsville
worst
won.
race of the season. I was going to say this is not worse than Martinsville.
So
Yeah,
that could be a little bit low, but I really think people, I did not see really very many people at all going, yeah, that was good on
Yeah.
Twitter. So I'm just trying to gauge the sentiment. People, I don't know. I don't feel as positive about this as last week. So we'll see. This might, I mean, before we even get to Daytona, we might even have to guess Daytona because you might have already clinched it with a win, right straight up. So we'll find out. Well, Jordan, we'll be back in person together, front and center,
Look forward to it
next week. So
look forward
Saturday
to
night race, everybody.
Saturday night race, buddy.
I mean, gosh, let's hope the weather. I'm so tired of rain and.
Well, I mean, just in Daytona too. It's just every year it feels like we play that dance, and it sucks because I think this is one of the more exciting races of the year. This is a race you look at the calendar, you're like, I am excited for this. This is great. This is what a regular season finale should be. But it just feels like we're always doing that rain dance. You know, you're doing we're going to race tonight. Are we not going to race tonight? Oh, we're going to race a little bit today and then move it to tomorrow. Like, it's just, God, I hope we just get a clean. This is what time the race starts and no issues.
Yeah, I'm looking at what I have on the schedule for the most anticipated races of the season. I have this as number 8 for my preseason list of most anticipated races of the year. So,
okay.
I only had, I mean, you might think that sounds low, but ahead of it, I had Chicago Street Course, obviously, North Wilkesboro, obviously, Martinsville cutoff race this fall after the Hail Melon. Of course, everybody's going to be like, Phoenix Championship race, Daytona 500. You're not going to put Daytona cutoff race above any of those. And then I had the Clash and the last Fontana race since it was the last one. So this came in at number 8 on my list, but still, I mean, still pretty high up there.
Yeah.
So
it's one of those races you just always feel like is going to deliver regardless. And it does more often than not. The racing itself has been great. The drama has been great. It's just the weather.
I haven't talked to you about it. But if we do get the race in on Saturday night as planned, I think we'll probably sort of turn that not just into a post-race podcast, but a little bit of a playoff preview as well.
Sounds good. Well, we kind of do that anyway. So we do that every year.
We'll give our picks and try to evaluate. Now, don't listen to us though. Brett, are you listening? Don't listen to us. Gosh.
Very sensitive by this, by the way.
I mean, no, I'm just giving him crap because he gave me crap all week, but it's all good. Anyway, all right, everybody. Thanks for listening. Thanks to Frank Kelleher for joining us. We will talk to you next time on the Teardown. See you, everybody.